put the DNA kit on the table. "Callum, you called an emergency board meeting for this. I called it because you want the company transferred to a man whose legal relationship to you has never been independently verified." "Mom, stop. No, not until the truth is documented." "Serena, are you formally challenging your son's paternity? I am requesting transparency." Serena pushed the kit toward me. "Then prove me wrong." A faded, pastel pink hospital bracelet slipped from her folder and landed beside the DNA kit. I saw a name printed across it. Harper Ellis. Serena snatched it up before anyone could ask. Then she placed an emergency motion on the table. "Until the results are confirmed," she said. "Callum loses signing authority, and Rowan's succession is frozen." Corinne read the motion twice. "The board vote is coming soon," she said. "After that, the sale proposal becomes active." Serena looked directly at me. "Take the test, Callum, or lose the company." Rowan pushed his chair back. I heard the legs scrape the floor, and I knew that if he walked out of that room while 11 people were watching, the story would harden around him before he reached the elevator. "Sit down," I said, not as a father, as a man asking for 30 seconds. He sat. I looked at the kit. I did not doubt my son. I have never doubted my son. But I understood the arithmetic in front of me. If I refused, every person at that table would decide I had a reason to refuse, and no result would ever undo that impression. "I'll take it," I said. "Supervised collection, licensed laboratory, full chain of custody, documented at every step. Nothing done in a kitchen with a cotton swab and a story." Corinne wrote that down. "Agreed." "And the motion," I said. "Corinne, tell me it isn't enforceable." She turned 2 pages and stopped. "Section 11, Emergency Governance Clause, adopted years ago. It allows a co-owner to request temporary suspension of executive authority when a documented ownership or succession question is unresolved." "Who signed it?" Corinne did not look up. "You did." I remembered the afternoon. Serena had brought me a stack of governance updates while I was pricing a wheelchair ramp retrofit for a client in a town 2 hours north. She had said it was protective language, the kind of thing a bank likes to see. I had signed it because signing was faster than reading, and because reading would have meant asking her why she wanted it. So the trap had my handwriting on it. Within the hour, Serena held temporary control of company payments, temporary authority over public statements, temporary authority to negotiate the proposed sale, and the power to hold my son's promotion in place indefinitely. I turned to Rowan. He was already standing. "Rowan, don't." His voice was steady, which was worse. "I'm not picking a side today. I need space from both of you." He left. He didn't slam anything. That was the part that stayed with me. I gathered my folder and walked out through the glass doors. And in the corridor outside the boardroom, I saw Serena hand a thick sale binder to a woman waiting near the window. Late 20s, charcoal blazer. Composed the way people are composed when they have rehearsed being calm. Serena touched her elbow. Not a handshake. Not the distance you keep with a vendor. The woman said something, and Serena laughed. One short breath of a laugh, the private kind. And then she saw me watching, and the laugh disappeared as if it had never been there. I looked at the visitor badge clipped to the woman's blazer. Harper Ellis. Rose Bridge Consulting. By the next morning, Our office manager had received an email from Serena, explaining that I was temporarily removed from financial decisions while a governance matter was resolved. My access card still opened the front door. The accounting system told me my credentials were no longer recognized. We had 31 employees. Most of them had been with us for years. When I walked through the design bay, 3 people said good morning and looked at their monitors a half-second too fast. The testing office was in a medical plaza across town. Serena arrived in a pastel pink coat, hair in the same neat bun she has worn since the year we opened, and she signed in before I did. Then she asked the technician for something I had not expected. "Expanded relationship panel," she said. "Not the standard paternity comparison." The technician looked up. "That's a broader analysis. The requested panel may identify additional direct biological relationships if matching records already exist in the partner database." "Fine. Why?" I asked. Serena capped her pen. "Because I do not want you questioning the test later." She signed the consent form without reading it. I watched her do it. She read every contract our company ever received, line by line, initialing margins. She signed that one like she already knew what it said. Rowan gave his sample without speaking to either of us. While Serena searched her purse for her parking ticket, I saw the bracelet again, tucked into an inside pocket. The pink faded almost to gray. This time I saw the line of small print beneath the name, a hospital date from long before Serena and I ever met. That afternoon, the buyer's representative moved the sale presentation up. Not by much, enough to matter. I sat in my truck in the parking garage and did the math out loud, because saying it made it real. If the board approved the sale, Rowan lost the leadership position we had been building toward for years. Half the field crews would be redundant inside a year. The community renovation program, the reason we started, the reason a woman in a rented duplex could get a walk-in shower installed at cost, would be a line item somebody deleted in a spreadsheet. And Serena would receive an exit payment large enough to fund anything she wanted to fund privately, without a single question from me. I drove to the job site where Rowan was supervising a bathroom conversion. He was on his knees, checking the slope of a shower pan, and he did not stand up when he saw me. "Whatever the result says," I told him, "I have been your father every day of your life." He kept his hand on the level. "That is not the question Mom put in front of everyone." "Then tell me the question." He looked at me then. "Why neither of you thought about what it does to a person to have 30 adults told there's a chance he isn't who he thinks he is?" He was right, and I had no answer that wasn't an excuse, so I gave him none. 2 days later, the laboratory sent a notice to Rowan and to me at the same time. "Paternity analysis complete. Additional relationship review pending." 20 minutes after that, our senior accountant forwarded me a copy of a message Serena had sent to the laboratory's client services line, asking them to hold all releases pending review by the requesting party. She had asked for the test. Now, she was asking them to slow it down. I needed 3 things, and I needed them before the board vote. The paternity result, my signing authority back, and enough weight on the table to stop the sale vote. People who meet us assume Serena is the finance person, and I am the man with the tape measure, and that is close enough to true. We started coal home renewal out of a rented office above a tire shop with 2 ladders, 1 truck, and a client list of 4. I ran the crews, the clients, the design. She built the books, the banking relationships, the board. Somewhere in there, I stopped asking about anything that lived on her side of the wall. There was a night, years ago, when she asked me if I still saw her as a partner, or only as the person who cleaned up whatever I didn't want to touch. I apologized. I meant it. Then, I was on a job site early the next morning, and neither of us mentioned it again. I never cheated on her. I never lied to her. What I did was make absence feel normal, and then call it peace. So, I did not sit still and wait for a laboratory. I asked Corinne for the original sale timeline. I pulled the public vendor list any shareholder can request, and I asked Rowan to check whether the laboratory portal showed who had requested each test category. The vendor list gave me the first real thing. Rosebridge Consulting retained as sale advisor. Every payment approved directly by Serena. None of them routed through the two-signature threshold we had used since our second year. Lead consultant, Harper Ellis. I took the list to Corinne's house that evening. She read it at her kitchen table with her reading glasses pushed up into her white hair. "I can review board procedure," she said. "I cannot investigate your marriage, and I cannot touch Serena's private records. If you bring me a broken rule, I can freeze a vote. Suspicion is not a broken rule. And if I bring you a pattern, bring me a pattern with dates on it." She handed the list back. "Callum, understand something. This board will not delay a sale that looks financially sound because a husband is upset. You need misconduct documented." The next morning, Serena sent a message to all staff. The temporary restrictions protect employees while a private family matter is responsibly resolved. She never used the word dishonest. She never used my name unkindly. She simply built a sentence with an empty seat in it and let 31 people decide who belonged there. Rowan called me that night and told me he would not give me his laboratory login. "I'm not becoming evidence," he said. "Not for her, not for you. It cost me my fastest path." And I told him he was right anyway, because he was. Then our senior accountant asked me to meet her in the parking lot behind a grocery store, which told me everything about how afraid she was. She had been with us for years. She kept her hands on the steering wheel the whole time she talked. "Rosebridge payments increased the same month Rowan was named as your intended successor," she said. "Not the month the sale was proposed. Before that." "How much before?" "Almost 2 years." She shook her head when I asked for the files. "I can't hand you confidential documents. I have a mortgage and a daughter in her second year of college." "I understand." She wrote something on a receipt and passed it through the window. "Invoice numbers, nothing more." "Those are on the vendor ledger," she said. "A co-owner can request them through counsel, legally, without me." I filed the request that night. The following morning, before the records arrived, Serena moved the sale presentation forward another full day. The paternity result came in on a Thursday afternoon. 99.99% probability. I am Rowan Cole's biological father. I read it 3 times and felt no relief for myself at all. I felt it for him. I drove to his apartment and stood in his doorway with the printout, and I said the only true thing I had. "You never had anything to prove." Rowan took the paper. He didn't unfold it. "Then why did both of you make me prove it?" There is no version of that question with a clean answer. Corinne scheduled an emergency board session for Monday morning to restore my signing authority. For about 11 hours, it looked like the worst of it was behind us. Then, the second page of the laboratory report loaded on my screen. An additional probable first-degree maternal relationship has been detected. Identity disclosure requires active consent. I read it 4 or 5 times before it settled. First-degree maternal. Not a cousin. Not a distant match from some ancestry hobbyist. A parent. A child. Or a full or half sibling connected through Rowan's mother. The system had found her because the other person was already in the partner genealogy database, already registered, already looking. By that evening, Serena had filed a privacy objection with the laboratory. I asked her to meet me at the house. She came in, still wearing her coat, still holding her keys, standing near the door like a woman visiting a property she was considering. "Who is the other match?" I said. The paternity result answered the only relevant question. I laid the Rose Bridge invoice list on the counter between us and turned it so she could read it. She didn't look down. Not once. She looked at me the entire time, and that steadiness told me more than any document could. "You've known this was coming," I said. "Good night, Callum." By Friday afternoon, she had obtained a temporary privacy order, preventing public disclosure of the additional match. The argument was clean, and it was honestly, legally reasonable. The expanded result contained identifying information about a third party who had never consented to being exposed in a corporate proceeding. She had built a wall out of someone else's rights. I had won the paternity question, and it had bought me almost nothing. Rowan's name was clear on paper. The board still had a sale in front of it, a scandal in the air, and a co-owner who was legally protecting a secret I could not name. The invoice records arrived Saturday morning. 11 payments to Rosebridge Consulting over many months, 9 of them, carried the same memo line: Family Transition Advisory. The first one was dated long before anyone at Cole Home Renewal had ever heard the word acquisition. Rowan came to my office on Sunday. He put his phone on my desk, screen up. "I pulled the consent record," he said. "I'm not giving you my login. I'm showing you one screen." The screen showed the test order. Standard paternity comparison, requested by the account holder. Expanded relationship panel requested by the account holder. The account holder was Serena. "She asked for the wider search herself," Rowan said. "Nobody suggested it. Nobody required it. Why show me this?" He picked up the phone. "I'm not choosing you. I'm choosing the truth. There's a difference, and I need you to remember it." Then he said something else, sitting back down slowly like the thought had just arrived. "Harper Ellis came to 4 foundation events, maybe 5. Consultants get invited to events. She came to the one at the house." He looked at me. "Dad, the one at the house 2 Christmases ago. Mom introduced her as an outside advisor and then gave her the guest room upstairs." I met Harper on Monday at a cafe near the river, at a corner table where nobody was close enough to hear. I did not accuse her of anything. I put one page in front of her, a single Rosebridge invoice, Family Transition Advisory dated years back, and I asked one question. "Does Serena know the laboratory found someone biologically related to Rowan?" Her face did something I have thought about many times since. It didn't go pale. It went young. "She never told you about me." "Told me what?" Harper set down her cup and put both hands flat on the table, and then she told me. "Serena is her biological mother. She was born when Serena was 17, more than a decade before Serena and I met. She was raised by Serena's older cousin in another state under the cousin's married name. She found Serena years ago through a genealogy service, sent one message, and waited weeks for a reply. When the reply came, Serena asked her for privacy. "Not forever," she said. "Just until the timing was right." "She hired me because I'm good," Harper said. "I want that on the record. But she also hired me because it gave us a reason to be in the same room." She turned the invoice around with one finger. "She told me the sale would create a fair beginning." Her words, "a fair beginning." "And you believed I knew." "She said you knew and preferred not to discuss it." Harper's jaw tightened. "I sat in your house. I ate at your table. I thought you were a man who could look at me and say nothing. I didn't know your name until it fell out of a folder days ago." She was quiet for a while. "She told me your family image couldn't survive me." "You're not what threatens this family," I said. "The lie is." She didn't cry. She got angrier, which I respected more. But when I asked whether she would put any of it in writing, she shook her head immediately. "Think about how it looks," she said. "A consultant on the sale turns out to be the owner's hidden daughter, and she comes forward the same week the son's inheritance is frozen. I become the woman who appeared out of nowhere to take something. I'd be the villain of a story I didn't write." She was right. That was the problem. She was completely right. Before she left, she told me one more thing. The bracelet, the pink one. She wrapped her scarf twice around her neck. "It's the only thing she kept from the day I was born." She brought it to our first meeting. She held it the whole 2 hours and never once put it down. By Tuesday morning, Serena knew we had met. She removed our senior accountant from the sale files and placed her on administrative leave pending a review of information handling. The woman called me from her car. Years of service, a mortgage, a daughter in her 2nd year. "I gave you numbers off a public ledger," she said. "That's all I gave you." "I know. You know." Her voice broke once and then steadied. "I just needed to say it to somebody who knows." That was the day I stopped thinking of this as a marriage problem with a business attached. Wednesday evening, Harper called me. She would sign a limited statement. 3 facts only. That Serena was her biological mother. That Serena had personally retained Rosebridge. And that Serena had told her the sale would create a private family settlement. She would not authorize release of the DNA match. Her identity in the report stayed sealed. 3 sentences, she said. That's what I can carry. It was enough. Thursday morning, I brought Corinne the signed statement, the invoice trail, and the completed paternity result. She read all 3 at her kitchen table and then made 2 phone calls in front of me. "The sale presentation is suspended," she said. "Emergency session Friday morning." Driving home, I let myself believe it was nearly over. Friday's session ran under an hour. Corinne confirmed the paternity test's chain of custody, step by step, collection to release. She restored my signing authority provisionally. She paused the sale vote. She ordered an independent review of every Rosebridge payment going back years, and she directed Serena to explain in writing an undisclosed personal relationship with a retained vendor. Serena said almost nothing. She sat with her hands folded on a closed folder in a pale pink blouse, and when Corinne asked whether she wished to respond, she said only, "I'll submit it in writing." Rowan sat down beside me, first time in many days. Halfway through, he leaned over. "After this," he said, "I want us to talk. No lawyers, no board members." I nodded and did not trust my voice. And then I made the mistake. I want to be precise about it, because it was mine. When the session ended, I walked Corinne to the elevator and asked her to keep Harper's name out of the board minutes. "She's 28 years old," I said. She didn't do anything except get born and answer a message. Refer to her as the vendor's lead consultant. Don't put the relationship in the record. Corinne studied me for a long moment. That's compassion, she said. It's also a hole. Somebody will fill it. Then let them fill it with a question instead of her name. She agreed, and I drove home feeling like a decent man. I still believed I could protect people by choosing what the world was allowed to know. That belief had been running my life for years, and it had never once been tested at scale. It got tested on Saturday morning, a regional business newsletter, the kind that lands in the inbox of every contractor and lender in 3 counties, published a story with a 40-second audio clip embedded in it. My voice talking to my son. Take the test so we do not lose everything. That is a real sentence. I said it. I said it in a hallway outside the boardroom on the first day when Rowan was shaking and I was trying to keep him from walking into 100 versions of a rumor. What the clip did not include was the 90 seconds before it, where I told him he had nothing to prove, and the 2 minutes after where I told him that if he wanted to refuse, I would stand next to him while he did. The headline said a chief executive had pressured his adult son into a paternity test to protect his own position. Serena told the board she had not leaked the recording. She said it plainly, and she did not offer a single detail about who might have, and she did not need to, because she had spent many days building a room where that question felt small. What she offered, instead, was an argument. Whatever the source, she wrote to the board, the existence of this recording demonstrates that Callum cannot remain in operational control during an independent review. It landed everywhere at once. Harper withdrew her statement Sunday night. She had received dozens of messages by then. People who had connected the newsletter piece to the vendor list, who had decided she was a woman circling a family business with her hand out. She sent me one line. I can't be the story. I'm sorry. Without her, the board had testimony from nobody. The recording made me look like a man willing to put his child's DNA on a table to keep a title. Rowan stopped answering. When I finally reached him, he said 8 words. You let a private conversation become a weapon. I said, I hadn't recorded it. He said, somebody did. And it was in your hallway, in your building, on your side of this. Then he was gone. Corinne suspended both Serena and me from operational control until the independent review concluded, not as a punishment, as the only defensible thing left. And the buyer, watching all of it from a distance, activated a clause in the letter of intent, requiring the board to accept or reject the offer within a short window. Miss the window, and Cole Home Renewal owed a termination payment large enough to force a sale anyway, just slower and uglier. I had asked Corinne to leave a name out of a record. Serena had filled the empty space with her own story before the ink dried. And the thing I had spent 2 weeks building, the paternity result, the proof that I am Rowan's father, was now worth nothing. Nobody was arguing about it anymore. The public had moved on to a better story. 2 parents who had used the young man's identity as ammunition, and one of them had been recorded doing it. I could not win by proving I was right about the one thing I had already proven. Sunday night, I drove to the tire shop building. The office upstairs was empty, and had been for years. We kept the lease out of sentiment. I sat on the floor in my navy jacket against the wall where we used to tape up job photographs, and I said it out loud in an empty room. Every time I called silence protection, somebody else paid for it. Rowan paid for it in a boardroom. Our accountant paid for it with her paycheck. Harper paid for it for years in advance before I ever knew she existed, and I finally understood that I had been trying to win the wrong thing. I had been trying to save my position, my name, my company. The goal had to be the truth, whole, handed to the two adults it belonged to, even if it cost me the company, even if it cost me the marriage, even if they used it in ways I would not choose. Monday morning, I went to see Rowan with nothing in my hands. No printouts, no invoice list, nothing to persuade him with. He let me stand in the doorway. "I knew you were my son," I said. "I've never had 1 second of doubt. And I still let a board make your identity a condition of my authority. I told myself I was protecting you. I was protecting the company and calling it your name." He waited to see if I would say her name next, if I would balance it, if I would explain. I didn't. What she did is hers. What I did is mine. He went and got his laptop. The full laboratory notification was 2 pages, not 1. The second page said the additional match was connected through the maternal line and was statistically consistent with a half-sibling. "I've had this since Thursday," he said. "I have the authority to release it. It's my sample, my consent. You don't have to. If I do it," he said, "Mom will never look at me the same way. And the promotion is finished. You know that." "I know." He closed the laptop. "I'll authorize it at the meeting. Not before, and not because you asked." That afternoon, I drove to Harper's office with the bracelet. Serena had left it inside the Rosebridge file after the emergency session. I found it when the review team returned my copies. Small, soft with age. The pink washed almost out of it. Harper looked at it on the table and did not reach for it. "I'm not asking you to testify," I said. "I'm not asking you for a statement. You're an adult, and it's your history, and you're the only person who gets to decide whether it becomes public. That's the whole reason I came. That's a strange strategy for a man about to lose a company. It's not a strategy." She pushed the bracelet an inch back toward me. "Hold it. If I take it today, it becomes a bargaining chip. And I've spent 4 years being a bargaining chip." Then she opened a drawer and took out a folder of her own. "I pulled my engagement file after we talked," she said. "Every Rosebridge payment is classified as an acquisition expense, transaction advisory, deal costs. Meaning there is no settlement, there's no instrument, no trust, no side agreement. Nothing with my name on it anywhere." Her voice stayed level, which cost her something. "If the sale closes, the acquirer pays a fee to my firm, and my mother receives an exit payment. If the sale fails, I receive exactly what I have received for 4 years. Nothing." She closed the folder. She wasn't building me a beginning. She was using the idea of me to justify a deal she wanted. "Will you come Thursday?" "I'll be in the room." She stood up. "I'm not promising you a single word." "That's fair." 2 days later, our suspended accountant filed her invoice numbers with the independent reviewer through the company's protected reporting channel. She stole nothing. She copied nothing. She followed the procedure exactly, which meant her name went on the submission, which meant Serena would know within a day. She did it anyway. Corinne called me Wednesday morning to tell me what she could and could not do, and I wrote it down word for word, so I would not build a plan on a wish. She could authenticate who had requested each test category. She could authenticate the chain of custody. She could rule on whether the sale disclosure had omitted a related party relationship. She could not disclose Harper's identity without Harper's consent. And she could not under any circumstance testify about my family. "I confirm records," she said. I don't confirm meaning. That afternoon, Serena sent a notice to the board, the shareholders, and the foundation mailing list. She would personally present the sale at the annual Community Foundation dinner on Thursday evening. Donors, employees, partners, families, the buyer's team, all in one room. The buyer's window closed at the end of that evening. She chose the biggest room she could find. She had spent 2 weeks winning rooms. The dinner was held in a hotel ballroom with our logo projected on the back wall and about 140 people at round tables. The crews, the office staff, board members, community partners, 3 families whose homes we had renovated at cost, and the buyer's team at a table near the front. Serena's case had 3 legs, and I had watched her build every one of them. The paternity result proved the family crisis was resolved. My conduct, the recording, the leaks, the noise, proved I was unfit to lead through a review, and the sale was the only way to protect 31 employees from another 6 months of instability. She intended to keep Harper sealed and use the wreckage to close the deal. I did not write a speech about her. I wrote 4 sentences about me, and I read them out loud in my truck until I could say them without my voice moving. I agreed to use my son's DNA in a corporate dispute. I signed the clause that handed a co-owner unilateral emergency control. I ignored 2 years of warning signs because confrontation frightened me more than loss did. And if the board concluded I was unfit to lead, I would resign as chief executive that night. That last one was not a tactic. I brought a signed letter and put it in my inside pocket. Rowan set his own condition and told me only once. He would authorize the complete relationship report after his mother publicly repeated that she had requested every available family verification. Not before. He wanted her in the room first, in her own voice, in front of witnesses. Harper told me she would decide after the report was read, and not 1 minute earlier, 40 minutes before the dinner, Serena found Rowan in the corridor by the coat check. I was 10 feet away, and neither of them lowered their voice. She offered him the division leadership, effective immediately, announced that night before the vote. "Refuse the disclosure," she said. "We handle everything privately after the sale closes, as a family." Rowan looked at her for a long moment. "Did you ever plan to tell Dad about Harper?" Serena did not flinch, and she did not lie. "I planned to tell him when the truth could no longer destroy us." That was her whole life, in one sentence. Not cruelty, not greed. A woman who believed she could hold a truth underwater until it stopped being dangerous. "That's not a plan," Rowan said. "That's a schedule you kept moving." He turned it down. By the time the doors opened, his name had been removed from the succession proposal in the printed agenda, and in the packet at every board member's seat was a sworn statement from Serena, declaring that I had discovered Harper's identity months earlier and had used it to pressure her during sale negotiations. It was not true. It was also almost impossible to disprove without opening everything. She began at 8 o'clock beneath the company logo in pastel pink. I sat in navy in the second row with Rowan on my left. Harper stood at the back near the doors, still deciding. Serena spoke for 11 minutes, and she was very good. She talked about payroll, about the crews, about a company that had grown past the 2 people who founded it. She said the sale was not a surrender, but a responsibility, and I watched 2 board members nod. Then she said the sentence I needed. I insisted on complete verification. I requested every available family relationship test the laboratory offered because this company deserved certainty, not comfort. Rowan's hand tightened on the edge of the table. When she opened the floor, I stood. "Serena is right about one thing," I said. "She did insist on complete verification. Nobody made her do that. She chose it." I saw her posture change slightly. A small settling, the way you settle when a man begins to concede. Then I read my 4 sentences. All of them. The DNA. The clause I signed without reading. 2 years of not asking, and the letter in my pocket. The room went very quiet, because an admission is the one thing nobody prepares a rebuttal for. Serena picked up her copy of the sworn statement. "My husband," she said, "learned about a private matter in my history months ago, and has been using it as leverage in these negotiations. He is turning a personal history into a weapon, because he cannot accept losing control of a company he no longer runs alone." 3 board members reached for the sale packet. I watched one of them uncap a pen. Rowan stood up. "I authorize release of the full relationship report," he said. "Complete, unredacted, my sample, my consent now." Serena turned to look at her son, and for 1 second, the composure I had lived beside for 20 years was simply not there. Corinne stepped to the podium with the laboratory file and did exactly what she had told me she would do, and nothing more. She confirmed that the expanded relationship panel had been requested by Serena Cole from Serena's account on the morning of the collection. She confirmed that Serena had signed consent, authorizing identification of all direct biological matches relevant to ownership and succession review. She confirmed the chain of custody was intact at every step. And she confirmed that I had not requested the additional search, had no access to the ordering account, and had received the 2nd-page notification at the same minute Rowan did. Then she waited for Rowan to nod before she read the result. "An additional, first-degree maternal relationship, statistically consistent, with a half-sibling, matched to an existing profile in the partner genealogy database registered to Harper Ellis." 140 people turned toward the back of the room. Serena had demanded a DNA test to question whether Rowan was my son. The test she designed, ordered, and consented to had found the daughter she had spent 28 years keeping off every record she controlled. Harper walked up the center aisle. She did not hurry, and she did not apologize. "Serena Cole is my biological mother," she said. "I was born 11 years before she met Callum Cole. I was raised by her cousin. I found her 4 years ago." She looked at the board table. "Callum Cole did not know who I was until 8 days after that test was ordered. I told him myself in a cafe because I assumed he already knew, and I was wrong." She let that sit. "I was told the sale would create a fair beginning for me. I was also told that Callum and Rowan could never know I existed. Both of those things came from the same person." Serena stood. "None of this changes the valuation," she said. "My personal history is not a governance matter. This board is being asked to make a financial decision, and a family revelation does not alter a single number in that offer." Corinne answered without raising her voice. "The issue before this board is not Miss Ellis's birth. It never was. The issue is that a co-owner retained a firm whose lead consultant is her first-degree biological relative, approved 11 payments to that firm outside the 2-signature threshold, did not disclose the relationship in the related party section of the sale documentation, and then initiated a public challenge to her own son's paternity that suspended the executive most likely to discover it. Every one of those is a governance matter. All 4 are documented. Nobody rescued me that night. No surprise witness. No file that appeared from nowhere. Serena had ordered the test. Serena had signed the consent that made disclosure lawful. Serena had routed the payments and written the memo lines. She had built every piece of it herself in advance, carefully, because she believed she could control when the truth arrived. I stood up one more time, and the room expected me to ask for her removal. "I'm asking the board for 4 things," I said. "Suspend the sale vote. Order the full independent review to continue with outside counsel. Guarantee every employee's position through the end of that review, and remove every member of this family from operational control while it runs, including me, especially me." Somebody at the back said my name. I kept going. I signed the clause that made this possible. I stayed quiet for 2 years because I preferred a comfortable house to an honest conversation. I don't get to be the exception to my own request. The board suspended the sale. The buyer's window closed that night without a vote, and the termination clause was never triggered because there had been no acceptance to withdraw from. Serena stepped down from financial authority pending review. So did I. Rowan declined the division leadership when they offered it to him again in front of everyone. "Not like this," he said. "Leadership shouldn't be handed to somebody in the middle of his family falling apart. Give it to whoever's earned it while we've been doing this." And Harper, asked directly by a board member whether she wished to make a claim of any kind, said, "No, I don't want a settlement, and I don't want a position bought with a secret. I wanted to be a person my mother could say out loud." I sat back down and understood the thing I had been avoiding my entire adult life. The truth had not destroyed my family. Every decision made to avoid it had. Months later, the company is still ours. The independent board kept Cole Home Renewal operating under professional management. The community renovation program is running at the same volume it was before, and the forced sale never happened. Our accountant is back at her desk with an apology in her personnel file and years of service restored. Serena and I are separated. We each see a counselor separately, and neither of us has raised the idea of a joint session. I don't know what happens next, and I have stopped promising myself an ending. She has started building something with Harper, slowly, awkwardly, without company money and without a single condition attached to silence. That part, I think, is real. Rowan talks to both of us. He will not carry a message between us, not one, and I have stopped asking. On a Saturday in the spring, Harper met me at the old office above the tire shop where the tape marks from our job photographs are still on the wall. I gave her the bracelet. "You were never the secret," I said. "The decisions around you were." She held it for a while. Then she set it on the shelf beside a framed photograph of Rowan at 19, standing in front of the first house we ever finished at cost. Not proof that anything was healed. Proof that nobody in this family gets erased again. The DNA test proved that Rowan was my biological son. It also revealed that Harper was connected to our family long before I knew her name. But no laboratory could decide what kind of father, husband, or man I would become after the truth arrived. That part was mine. Tell me in the comments, can a marriage survive a secret this deep? Or does trust end the moment one person turns the truth into a weapon?